Basically on.
No more swear words.
No more swear. You can swear all you want. I do sometimes.
Oh, good.
Whatever makes you comfortable. I don't know how many children we have watching this, so they're probably all right with it.
Yeah, they probably are. Anyway, sometimes they just slip out. You can't help it. Just
I mean, that's part of being colorful, right?
yeah.
There's a way to swear, then there's a way not to swear. Like if you're swearing with anger, it's different from it part
Yeah.
of it being the color of your language.
Mhm.
You can say a word that's not a swear word that's much more hurtful than a fuck or something like that.
Exactly. Have you seen that Osho video where he talks about the word fuck? Um,
Osho?
yeah.
I have,
Have you
yeah.
seen that video? It's really funny.
He spent a lot of time, yeah, getting into that.
Yeah. And all
There's
the ways you can use that word. It's bizarre. Why did we choose that word to do that with? It's funny, isn't it?
what he was saying, if I remember right, was he was saying that that word is very powerful, and the reason why society has kind of removed it is because we want people to not be expressing this sort of like dynamic power that they have. Just water everything down, basically.
Yeah, that's for sure. The bland, the bland. Yeah. Hmm.
So tell me a little bit about your relationship with Ehor, because he's the one that kind of set this up a little bit.
Oh yeah, Ihor is an extraordinary character. Um, he's it's well, he's part of the Unfuckers group, and I'm part of the Unfuckers group, and that's how we. I think your brother Ben is
That's why
too.
you call me Ben, huh? He is in
Yeah,
that group.
yeah. But um, my nephew's an Unfucker as well, but not a formal one. And he's part of an anarchy party. But yeah, my work has been most of my work has been with children to try and normalize for parents, not for the kids, because the kids know everything
Hmm.
essentially. Um, but a lot of times the parents don't know why their children are different, and it's like Ihor is a forerunner of a group who are very different. And I know he'll be listening to this, so I have to be
Certainly.
very careful what I say.
I
um,
think it's probably hard to offend Ehor. He seems very, very centered.
oh, he has an extraordinary sensitivity, Gary. It's like this. Sometimes you see the energy going into him, and it's one of the things that it's a beautiful. I mean, sensitivity is just so beautiful and so misunderstood in this world.
Hmm.
Like um, a lot of the sensitives either don't make it, they bow out before, because they just can't take it, or they end up in institutions,
Hmm.
or they just get completely medicated.
Yep.
Um, and so he's one, he's one of the forerunners, and of that sort of energy, in my opinion. Anyway, you know.
Yeah, he definitely has an energy to him that's very unique. And I've never, well, I spoke with him once in person, but even through text, he has a certain way that he speaks, and it's unusual, but also pleasant. Like it's very,
Mm,
he's like you said, he's very sensitive. He's very aware.
yeah, very gentle,
Yeah.
and very aware of the power of words.
Hmm.
So he chooses his words, and well, he's a linguist anyway. I mean, he speaks lots of languages, and he just has a natural facility with language, and he's very aware of the power of words and the origin of words. And there's a few words that I can't use when I'm talking to Ihor, which is really funny. Yeah, what will I say? But
Like which words? Well, he's listening now, so maybe you can't say them here either.
No.
Noted, but I mean that's just how it is, though. I mean, we behave differently around different people, and if you wish to keep friends around, then you have to realize and understand that like they have a specific way that's kind of within parameters for you to operate, and then you just that's where you stay. You know, you stay within that and explore within that.
Mm. Yeah, particularly when there's a good reason for it. It's like
Right.
I know I'm very lazy with my language,
Mm-hmm.
um, and I often I'm not very good at learning languages either. It's like I'm not. Some people have a they do have a great facility with language. I certainly don't, and I'm a bit careless about the words that I use.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm the same. Hold on one second. I think it's really dark, so I'm gonna try and bring a bit of light. Is that better? A little bit better? Too bright?
Um, I don't think it's made much of a difference, really.
Maybe the maybe the laptop will adjust. I don't know. It's gonna make me look darker because of the background.
Oh yeah. Hi there.
Whatever.
I've got these glasses on. You can probably hardly see. But anyway,
You're
that's
pretty well lit. It's okay. But yeah, I mean I was the same. I was a sloppy linguist. I'm gonna close them. I think this is worse.
mm-hmm.
But I mean, when I was
Nice and dark.
yeah, when I was younger, well, we were homeschooled, so we didn't have the the social system kind of refining our language. So we had like a Lord of the Flies language, like we had our own sort of vernacular and how we interacted with each other. But it was also sloppy because we didn't have like our parents didn't care very much about the correct pronunciation and enunciate your words properly. You know, that sort of was something I had to learn later on that I found out that I was sloppy in how I was speaking. And then I was like, oh, let's try to clean it up a little bit. But then I kind of went back to, I'll find a happy medium in the middle because I don't really care so long as my intent and my message is getting across.
And you communicate via silence very effectively.
Mm, yeah. I learned that also. That's also coming partially from Osho and Alan Watts. He said that a lot. He was like, imagine a piece of music that didn't have any spaces in between the notes. Like imagine what that would sound like. It would just be just this thing of noise, you know, just bombarding your ears.
Mm,
So
yes.
we were brought up focusing on the noise because that's what the system wants. It's just noise, 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 noise. Even mine, like mental noise, just mental noise, always thinking this or that, and the silence is completely like not even acknowledged as a presence.
Yeah.
And I don't think the silence is more important than the noise. I just think that both of them have to have kind of equality for the the conversation to be balanced.
Mm. And I really notice, God, to notice the quality of energy or the quality. I used to live in a house that, as they say in Ireland, just got the electric. Like it was built pre-electricity, so it wasn't ringed. Like the rooms weren't ringed with electrical wiring. There was just one. There was one electric socket, and oh God. But the quality, the energy, you could feel, or you could hear a real silence in that house, if you like, or experience a real silence because
Hmm.
there was no background hum. Um, it was just the most beautiful, and it's something that I've noticed that actual real silence is harder to find now.
Hmm.
With I mean, you can even hear it here. I can hear the traffic. I'm out in the well, it's not really, it's further out than the suburbs, but there's always some noise that
You're
is not a natural noise.
Where are you exactly again, or roughly?
just on the east coast of Ireland, south of Dublin,
I thought
in
it
a
was
place called.
interesting that I had Susie on yesterday. You guys are both from Ireland. The fact that like you both came on the show like day 1 day apart, I thought that was interesting how that arranged itself.
Wow, who's Susie? Well, I'll see, I guess.
You'll see. Yeah, the show's already up, so I did it with her yesterday, and she's from Dublin though.
Okay.
She's just one who's part of this group. This crazy online whatever we have going on here.
Yeah.
But that's how it happens. Like even when I was running my eBay business, things would always happen in pairs or threes. Like I would buy the same phone 3 times in the same day, and then I wouldn't see that phone for another month or something. But I guess that's kind of like the synchronistic aspect of the realm when you're actually paying attention.
Yes. Yeah. Interesting. The connections that are coming together now, the pulling in of energy,
Mm-hmm.
are like pulling threads in a way. Um,
Yep.
how old are you, Gary? What's your age?
I'm gonna be
What's your
33.
current?
Gonna be
You're
33
33.
in July. I'll be 33.
Aha. Okay. Yeah. So you're very similar. You're very similar age to my nephew. He's a bit younger than you, but very close. Um, and that was when I started making essences. It was for that particular for him and his friends.
When you started making essences,
Yeah,
what's
I
that?
make I make gem essences
Out of actual
for.
stones?
Yeah, yeah, out of actual stones. Um,
Oh wow.
but they're just like they're to provide a kind of scaffolding, an energetic scaffolding for people
Can
because
you show that one again? And it's like a sphere
it's been cut into a sphere.
out of
It's
a quartz or
calcite.
something.
It's calcite.
Calcite.
Yeah.
So would you just take a rough rock and then somehow uh, how would you? What's the process?
All you do is ask the rock to transfer its energy into water, and it does that. So the water just picks up the pattern, and you ask the water also to take up the pattern. So the vibration, the frequency, the healing potential of the rock gets transferred to the water, um, and the water holds that energy, and then you know the way people will say somebody is their rock, so and so is my rock.
Mm-hmm.
And so rocks can have a very stabilizing effect on people's energy. When your energy is diseased or out of balance,
Mm-hmm.
um, a rock can be really, very stabilizing, protective, anchoring kind of energy, actually. So that I reckon that there was a big mismatch around the time that you came in, a big mismatch with the kids who came in and the energy that they were expecting to meet. Um, that it was particularly hard for some of them anyway. The ones who were really forced into certainly in Ireland, forced into mainstream education and forced into um, just I mean the control system, the fear. I mean the here here is Ireland is a Catholic, or has been a predominantly Catholic country, and so we're educated in the fear of God, kind
Mm-hmm.
of. There's a terrible, you
Right.
know, fear. There's an awful lot of fear in this country,
Yeah.
um, and it was really really rough for that crowd. For I saw my nephews come in and just not want to. One of them particularly didn't want to stay at all. It's like he wanted to go.
In the system.
He wanted to leave, like to die.
Oh.
Uh, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
He just wanted out.
Well, I mean
Um,
that's when an individual doesn't accept, it doesn't mesh with the system, then if there's not an alternative, then they have to go off into fantasy land or something, like you have to do something, especially if you don't have this rock that you're talking about, as far as having some sort of community that's already there, that's actually supportive, that's kind of organic. And most of us didn't have that. Most of us don't have that. That is part
Yeah.
of what was destroyed with this whole push, was the organic community, and then even the organic family, with all of the stuff that goes on out there. uh, part of which is the gender issues and all this screaming and flailing about. With those things, they're only there to destroy the organic family. As far as I can tell, it's not something other than that. And the organic family is like the basis, or the bedrock of what a real society would be. That's what would keep it strong, is its organic families.
Yeah. Um, yeah, the nuclear, I mean, you just have to look at the word nuclear family. It's not a very safe, happy, comfy kind of expression, is it?
What is it again?
Um, the nuclear family.
Nuclear?
Nuclear, sorry,
Nuclear.
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 Nuclear. Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
It sounds like
What a
an atom bomb.
description. I grew up in a nuclear family. Um,
Yeah. Nuclear, nuclear. A lot of people say nuclear, and then they receive a lot of flack for that.
yeah. Mm. My former husband is Balinese, so I've seen a lot of, spent quite a lot of time in a Balinese family situation, which is a huge extended family,
Mm-hmm.
where there's no pressure on any one person to be the sole parent.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and it's amazing, certainly from the the female perspective, I guess. There isn't that, I remember going to see a friend of ours, and we said, "Oh, look, we're going off shopping," and she just had a new, well, a young baby, like a 3-month-old baby, and she was breastfeeding, and she said, "Oh yeah, I want to come," and she hiked the baby off her tit and stuck it on someone else's, and off, and I thought, wow, that's brilliant. She's nobody gets exhausted
Mm-hmm.
in that kind of environment, and like every child is precious, really. Like, you nearly have to make an arrangement to meet your child, because somebody is playing with them, somebody's holding them, somebody's with them the whole time. um,
Yeah, that's kind of. I think it was Aldous Huxley. I don't remember if it was him or not. It might have been Brave New World, but it was this idea that the community takes care of the kids, and the kids don't even stay with any one parent if they don't want to. Like, if they want to explore, go.
yeah.
But the scaffolding is still there, like the structure,
Yes.
and they will take care of them properly and all that. But the they won't be isolated in this nuclear family like you're talking about, which is what that even means is kind of hard to wrap your brain around. But the nuclear family is kind of talking about isolating from the greater whole.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it's not an easy thing to, I think, simply produce like a communal care system, because the system that exists doesn't want that. So there's going to be all kinds of opposition.
Yeah, we've got a way to go. It seems to me that one of the things that's in the way of a lot of the changes that we need to make is the IQ versus EQ situation. It's like the system has put such an emphasis on the development of IQ
Hmm.
that our emotional intelligence has just, been completely left.
Right.
Um, and we've got to bring that back into balance, um, so that we can get communities together without, people freaking out, without ego, the ego stormers and blah de blahs. Um, and it's going to take, it'll take a while. Well, yeah, I'm really, really. glad to see the number of parents who are pulling their kids out of school. I mean, you must have been like to be homeschooled at your age. I mean, how lucky was that?
Yeah, it was of course I didn't know what it was while I was in it. I didn't and I even saw it as a negative when I first got thrust into the public system, but later on once I came out the other end sort of, I didn't even finish the college thing, but I realized that I'm the way I am and more perceptive because I wasn't in that system the whole time. That's the whole reason I'm not. That's the whole reason I'm any different, or that I, maybe am more aware or something, is because I wasn't in that thing where those sort of traits aren't. They're not. They don't want them. Even when I went to college and I would try to be creative in a paper or something, they just were like, no, no, these are the rules and this is how you do it. And I was like, well, what? Why don't you just like make a copy of the next guy's work and then give grade for that and then put my name on it if you don't even want what I'm putting into the paper?
Excuse me.
It was hard for me to understand, like, why the creative urge was so pushed against. I could never understand that.
Oh, I can understand it. Excuse me. That's really that's bringing up my throat issues. Um, yeah, this expression. My God, imagine a whole class of kids asking questions. Ooh, it's terrible. I mean, certainly when I was in school, if you asked a question, you were put outside the door.
Really? Wow.
Oh, it was shocking.
That's
Who
pretty
made the
bad.
world? God made the world. Who is God? Outside the door.
In the Bible.
It's really
Certainly not here, though. That's certainly God is not here. That's the one thing that they drill into you.
yeah,
Somewhere else with like a sword and a notebook
yeah,
where he's taking notes on your behavior.
yeah. He's much worse than Santa Claus. Yeah.
So it's not like, I don't know. I don't think it's not complicated to me thinking about the situation. Most of what has happened seems fairly evident, and there are like so many theories out there as to why things are the way they are, and they actually make sense. But one thing that I'm not unsure about is that the way, the correct way to interact with people, we already have that. We know it. It's not something that's like, oh, let's go learn how to live. No, like that knowing how to live was what was being suppressed. We already are innately capable of doing that. And it's not like people who say, oh, well, if you dump the system, then everyone's going to become anarchists and want to kill each other. Like that's just bullshit. That has nothing to do with how people actually live, when they're wanting to live harmoniously with each other. It has nothing to do with that.
Yeah. Well, the funny thing is, I mean, the old Brehon laws in Ireland were very close to what would now be called anarchy, and it was about self-governance. People know how to get on.
Mm-hmm.
People want to get on. Um, and people, left to their own devices, people have an innate sense of order and justice.
Right.
And they develop their own ways of being that that are in alignment with that. And they don't, they do, the Brehon laws came from the spirit. They came from within out because nothing was imposed from the exterior. Um, Nobody told them how to develop their laws. They developed them from the heart out. It was very heart based. These are the ancient laws of Ireland. I don't know if you're familiar with them.
What are they? Bratham?
Brehon, Brehon. I'll
Okay.
send you a link to young lads talking about them. They're they were unusual in that they were written down. Um,
I'll put a note.
yeah, it's very interesting, really interesting, and fair. Um,
And how are these perceived in Ireland today?
they're not.
Not at all.
Um, Not really. I mean, when we got our independence, what we could have done at that point, if the independence was actually real, was to have looked at the Brehon law system and started to dismantle the English judicial system and reinstigate our own laws. But we didn't. We didn't do that.
Mm.
Um,
Are there any
but
groups of people that maybe surreptitiously follow the Brehon law system or without
I th-
advertising?
I think that it's something that people naturally do. The Brehon, your reputation in under the Brehon system, your value was your reputation. So if you had a shite reputation, nobody'd trade with you. Nobody'd,
Yeah.
you know. So, you know, when people organize themselves in groups like that, you know, if you're going to be a mean, nasty person, then you will quickly be isolated by the group. And
Hmm.
I see that in Bali as well. You know, if you're going to work in a group situation, you know, you do have to row in with the crowd to a certain extent.
Right.
But it's when you're working in a small group, it's self-regulated or self-regulating rather than the situation we have now is like we're a puppet. I mean, Ireland, holy God, um, which is a very Irish expression and really doesn't not in alignment with the multidimensional world. But anyway, it's one of my one of my lapses. Sorry, Igor. Anyway,
Feel free.
um, um, yeah. What was I saying? Oh yeah. I mean, here we are. We're really kind of an offshore island for the American corporations. That's 24 out of the 25 biggest biotech companies in the world are here in Ireland.
Wow.
We have the headquarters of. It's like we're this handy little island. We're offshore America, and we're fairly close to Europe. So we've got Facebook and Twitter and Google, and they're all headquartered here. Or they have their European sort of headquarters here in Dublin. We have the financial services system centre, which is money launderers for most of Europe. It's really terrible. Ireland the Great and the Green, and they're really corrupt as well.
Yeah. Yep.
Mm.
That's what it all is, though. But I feel like there is the insidiousness of the system has done something to the realm to where like we are allowed to speak openly about these things, whereas before, there's something has been changed to where yes, it's still like a barren wasteland if you walk outside, and there literally isn't very much life, walking around. You see everyone's either plugged in or they're in.
Walking Dead.
Yeah, yeah. So we're kind of living in that situation, but at the same time, it's like what Og has said in the past with that analogy of the fish, being having the cup over it. I don't know if you saw that video that he posted that linked to, but there was an aquarium, and they had this fish, this like carnivorous fish. They put a clear glass case over him, and then they put another fish that he normally likes to eat, right? Or rather, they had the other fish inside of that little thing, and they had him on the outside. So he tried to eat the fish. He kept banging against the glass, and he could never understand why he couldn't get that fish. So they left him in there for, I don't remember how long it was, maybe 4 or 5 hours or something, to where he eventually stopped. He didn't move anymore. He just sat there, right, looking at the fish that was inside. Then they came back. They removed the case, and they just stayed on him, and he didn't do anything. He didn't try to get the fish. He didn't even actually, he swam around a little bit, but he had lost all of his drive to kind of get that fish. And he never ate it, and he eventually died.
Ha.
So
Interesting.
I saw that analogy as something similar to what we have here, which is that, if we are the fish that wants to get the make our life better, say that's the thing inside, right? Make our life better. We've always been stopped by this invisible glass thing that we can't see, but now the glass is gone. So I think it's kind of like we're free now to do what we're going to do without like fear of annihilation, but it's more of a, we just have to try, actually try and see if something's actually different this time. See if the glass case is really removed.
Yeah, yeah. Um, and it's something that, I mean, the fear programming is just not working as well as it used to.
Mm-mm.
You know, I mean, when I was a kid, um, boy, the fear programming was really strong and really effective. And I've seen like subsequent generations come in and have the guts, or there's something about you lot. I think I'm 60 now, so um, there's something about like generations from your age. That wasn't as easily programmable. That's what I reckon. I don't know,
Mm-hmm.
but something changed. So you lot were asking questions and realizing that fear isn't real. It really isn't real. There's very few times when fear is actually real.
Right.
You know, you're standing in front of a hungry tiger or something. Of course, it's real.
I know.
As they say.
Right.
But most of the time, it's not. It's just a conditioned response. And it's like we've taken down all these bars of, well, you can't do that because, and we're going, oh well, actually, it doesn't matter. We don't care. We really don't care anymore.
Right.
You know, you you just can't control us that way anymore. Ha ha. But yeah, and it's like, I suppose it's an interesting. I know Ihor and I talk a lot about this. About the potentials. Like, I know I can walk through walls, but I haven't actually done it. I know I can teleport, but I
Mm-hmm.
haven't actually done it.
Yeah.
And I've kind of, I've sat there and I've thought, I just dematerialized. Just not quite, haven't quite got it. And that's, I mean, for me, because I used to say that to parents, something, you won't keep your kids in school when they can walk through those walls. When your kid can just walk through that wall, you can't keep them in school. There'll be no way.
Right.
And for me, it's like we're on our way to that, when we can really, really do that with our parents' reality, then we're totally, totally free. Like, nobody can keep you in prison. Nobody can keep you anywhere. When you can just appear and disappear whenever you feel like it. I think Lala was talking about that. I think she's probably was able to do stuff like that when she was a kid.
She was when she was younger, yeah.
Mm.
I think she kind of self limited as she was growing up because of all the trauma she experienced through these sort of, because she wasn't controlling it that well. I don't know if she ever really controlled it that well, but she didn't have like a place. It's like I was saying in the last video with her. I was like, you, Lauda, you need to be in Hogwarts, but there isn't a Hogwarts here, so that's why you're like a fish out of water.
Yeah.
So
And this is the problem. This is the problem, because parents, there's no elders to kind of, like, I had parents come to me one time and they said, look, our kid can move things with his mind. He can bend iron girders. He can flip phones off tables. He can do their stuff. What are we going to do? And they'd been to somebody who said to tell him to stop it. And I said, that's enough. Because it's it's a great gift to be able to do that.
Mm-hmm.
But this kind of interface between parents who think this is absolutely crazy and kids who have these amazing gifts, this is a really interesting interface, actually, because and in a place like Hogwarts, there would have been elders who would have helped the kids to develop these skills and to contain them and to use them appropriately and so on. And here we have parents who think it's totally freaky, and all they can advise their kids is to stop doing that, for goodness sake. which is a pity. But we're coming to a place, and so many kids actually know if you talk to them. I bet Zach does. Like, I've asked kids, do you know how to teleport? And they say, yeah, they do. It's like straight away they just go, yeah, I do.
Uh-huh.
Or do you know how, that you can ask them all kinds of things and they know. I had one kid draw me a diagram of like a geometric like diagram of what was going to happen. But he hadn't actually done it, he said, but he knew how to do it. He knew that this was what happened. And I was going, yeah, great.
When he's teleporting?
Yeah. It
Wow.
was like the dematerialization of the geometric patterns.
Uh-huh.
He just drew this diagram. I was like, yeah.
Yeah, I mean that's a good sign. It's a good sign that kids are even with the structures that are existing. It's a good sign that they're still able to retain this inner power that they have.
Yes.
Because it really is limitless. The us as beings, we're limitless in the creative aspect.
Yeah.
There needs to be inner control structure, but that's something that's also given with the limitlessness. You're not just like thrown out into the universe screaming through all the stars with no structure. There's still something there. There's a groundedness that comes paired with the limitless creativity aspect of it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And once
And
you've gotten past the fear, then that's when you can explore.
yes. Yeah. And there's also the 100th monkey kind of aspect, because so many more people are getting to that kind of place, that real realization, not just for me it's theoretical. I haven't
Mm-hmm.
actually done it. I have this. It's yeah. I theorize that it's possible, and I can see. I've also um, imagined how you can actually make something from the void. How you can do that, and how you can concentrate and bring it down and actually have it appear. And I haven't done that either. I mean, I haven't completed it because every time I start to do that, my mind kicks in. You have to be in complete and absolute oneness with the thought, with
Mm-hmm.
the vision. As soon as you think, oh, it's not going to work, then it's not going
Right.
to
Right.
work.
But I think it's interesting that it feels natural for you, even though you're saying it's been only conceptual. Like this understanding that you have of the innate potential within, the fact that that's there even with you not having experience, to me shows that is probably a more real reality than the physical limiting thing that we seem to be experiencing now.
Yes.
So it's just a matter of energetically moving toward that and letting it come about as it, like, we can't force it. That's one thing that I know for sure. We can't force any of it.
No, allow it. I
Yeah.
guess. What happened to your shoulder?
That's my elbow. I
What happened
I
to
fell.
you?
I was skateboarding down the sidewalk and I didn't see this giant crack, so I just flew, landed on my left hand, and it was like an unexpected fall. So if I had seen it and I knew it was coming, then I probably would have fallen better. But it was unexpected, so my elbow apparently took all of the hit, and now it's kind of immobilized. It's been getting better. This is like 2 days ago, so I have slightly bigger range of motion, but I've been bedbound for a bit.
Uh, do you ever take any homeopathic medicine?
Not so much. I mean, I've been giving it Reiki. I'm sure that's
Okay,
helping a
that's
bit. What would you recommend?
well. There's an injury mix that's very good. Arnica. I'm a homeopathic by training, but I don't use so much now. Arnica, rutagraph, and rustox.
I'll put it in my notes. Maybe I can whip up some homeopathic remedy.
You can program the water to behave like that.
Arnica? What is it? Arnica?
Arnica, ruta, grav, or UTA.
Ruta?
Yeah,
Grav?
grav, Grav, rutagraph.
Av? Rutagraph?
Yep,
Okay.
and rustox.
How do you spell that?
or Hus. And the next word is tox, Tox.
Two separate words?
Yeah.
Okay. And where would I find something like this?
What you can do, well, if you wanted to buy the actual pills, you can go to a whole food shop probably.
Mm-hmm.
But you can also write. You can just write it on paper. You remember? Did you ever come across Masaru Emoto, the Japanese doctor who worked with the energy of water crystals?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So he would just tape a word onto the water, and after a while, the water would take up particular crystal patterns when it was frozen. So, in much the same way, you can program the water to behave like arnica, rustox, and rutilgraph by taping or placing the glass on these words.
And adding intention, I'm sure, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, because you do Reiki, so you'd be well able to, you're used to sending energy anyway.
Right. Huh, that's interesting.
Mm.
I'll try it.
It works.
Thank you. So, you're working in kids. Is this your career, or how do you do this exactly?
Career. I've never worked for anybody else, really. I did work originally. I trained as a riding instructor when I was, and then I lived in America for 2 years. As soon as I graduated, I went there. But I really wanted to do veterinary. I had no interest in people at that point. I was over people. Oh my God. However, I didn't have enough points. I'm not that academic. I'm more a kind of intuitive person. So I only had enough points to get into the arts in university, like law and, languages and all of that stuff. And I had no interest in that. So I just finished my training as a riding teacher. And when I was in America, I got totally put off medicine. I saw what they did to the horses, and it was disgusting. So then I was introduced to homeopathy and saw it working with the horses. And so I went to train to be a homeopath. And I was thinking, what's the point of just treating people when they're already sick? Why don't, we concentrate and focus on treating children?
Mm-hmm.
And not many homeopaths do, because children are inconvenient. They get they get sick at night and Fridays, Saturdays, Sundays. So it's full on, running a practice with kids. But that's what I specialized in. And I love it, there was something I also felt, it's part of you could talk about, all these lofty kind of terms we have about, why I'm on the planet in the first place. And I did feel that I was on the planet in the first place to try and help kids stay here and to try and protect them from the programming to a certain extent. So the homeopathic practice turned into making essences, and that's what. So I go around mostly teaching practitioners how to use the essences so they can, Gary, I nearly called you Ben another time. That was close. The bee was forming on my lips.
It's okay. Like our mom would always, she would get through maybe 3 or 4 names before she hit the right one. Half the time she was trying to yell at one of us. Gary, Ben, Russell. She would always take forever.
But it's like it's such a desolate experience for kids to walk around and just see all these dead people. Just see all this. It's dreadful for them. So when they come across something that actually something that has an energy in it, you can see. watch a kid pick up a crystal and they just go, wow. They do the same with essences. They do the same, not quite the same with homeopathy, but absolutely with essences.
Mm-hmm.
And it gives them a connection to something that they recognize.
And how do you structure this as far as like getting people in, or is it word of mouth? How do you fit yourself within the overall system, and how does it treat you?
Well, it's been, I mean, I've been in practice. I graduated about 30 years ago, so I was very much mainstream for quite a long time. Well, actually, I started making the essences in around 1998, and then they only went out in the world in about 2002, 2003. It's tricky. It's really tricky, Gary, because the machine absolutely doesn't want you to go near children. Like, there's some countries where homeopaths may not treat children until they're older than 7.
Mm.
And the programming goes in the first 7 years.
Right.
So they don't want kids going anywhere near anything that can, prevent the programming or undo the programming until it's well in there.
Mm-hmm.
So I've had to be very careful. We were taken down. Yeah, I had 1 hour on mainstream Irish radio of, they'd set up a panel and essentially just destroyed our business because the brief that I had was to get the essences into shops so that kids could go in and find something in a shop that would actually make them feel better.
Mm-hmm.
And so we had the essences in about 40 shops in Ireland, and then this shock jock character on, it just took them apart. He really, really, it was nasty.
What did he say? Like, what was his reasoning?
Oh, what was his reasoning?
Or excuse, rather. What was his excuse?
Yeah, he called them Alco Pops for kids, because essences they come in concentrate form. That's a concentrate called the Works.
Mm-hmm.
That's an existential rescue remedy for kids who feel like, just getting out of here.
Mm.
And he just had lined up a panel of men, essentially, who they had lots of things, like, one of the things was, well, we survived. We didn't. It's good for kids to go through this stuff. It's, it's really, we're fine, aren't we?
So he wasn't even arguing the benefit. He was just trying to say like struggle is good.
Struggle is good.
Wow.
It's better. It makes you a stronger person. This is ridiculous. Oh yeah, it was horrible. It really was.
So he has a voice? Like, how did he persuaded the community against it, or what?
He's a very strong voice. He has a program. What would you call it? His live audience at the time was about 250,000.
Mm.
So in Ireland, we only have a population of 4 million. So that's quite a percentage.
Yeah. That's like a 16th.
So if he does something it has a big effect. And he's very, very powerful. He's very powerful.
Did he communicate, like, did you talk with him directly, or was this?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. He rang me up. The radio program rang me up and said, would I mind talking to him? And I, big, thick Egypt here. I just said, yeah, okay.
You didn't feel any warning signs or anything? No pinging?
I should have. I don't know where I was. I don't know where I was that day. I must have been some other planet.
Wow.
However, the other side of that was that we had, women predominantly rang in to the program to say, oh, look, we use these essences and they work really well, and etc., etc. And none of them were allowed on the air.
Really?
So, yeah. So when we complained to RTE afterwards, that's our radio broadcasting corporation or whatever, they said that the women were deemed to be unreliable. And their opinion was deemed to be unreliable. And what I had, people emailed me afterwards and said that it was like a rerun of a witch trial. So there was something there. This was like intuitive medicine coming up against the rational mind.
Mm-hmm.
One woman said she was vomiting in her kitchen listening to it, that it just brought up this kind of rabid attack energy. I mean, she felt the rabid attack energy herself, as if she was being, brought to a hanging or something.
Well, we hold that residual energy. I mean, you can recognize it, I'm sure.
So, yeah, it's easier now. But
You don't put them in shops anymore?
You what?
You don't put them in shops anymore?
Only homeopathic shops. There's a few whole food shops, but not. Mostly it's homeopathic pharmacies.
Okay.
Yeah, it's like you can tell in Ireland. I mean, everywhere actually, you can tell if something works by whether or not it's banned.
Yeah.
If they're letting you sell it, then it probably is not that good.
Yeah. That's probably a good rule of thumb around here too.
Oh yeah, the FDA is a shocker. Which is really bad. Because we used to have a distributor in America, but the FDA they can pull a consignment for no reason. They don't have to tell you why. They don't have to tell you a release date. They can just mess with you essentially.
Mm-hmm. Do you have an FDA equivalent in Ireland, or is it FDA worldwide?
Yeah. No, we have the Irish equivalent is the Medicines Board, and they ban lots of the herbs that work really well. You can't get them here, yeah, if it's good, you probably can't get it.
It's like the whole hemp thing over here, right?
Yeah.
Like,
and then,
had so many uses for that organic material, and it's banned.
Okay. Yeah. We should be wiping our bums with it. It's like building houses with it. You can do everything. You can make material out of it. You can, it's one of those extraordinary. It's a bit like the coconut, I suppose, in Asia. You can do just about anything with the coconut.
Mm-hmm.
And hemp over here, we should just be growing it everywhere.
Yeah, it's just anything that makes the people self-sufficient is frowned upon.
Yeah.
But I mean, at the same time, I think if you don't get together and say like we're going to war against the machine, if you go about it that way, then you're gonna get stomped on like an ant, like. But if you go about it in simply communicating and spreading ideas, and individually people incorporate that stuff if they want to, and if they don't, they don't. Then there's not any sort of head of the organization to try to attack, because the whole of the community is acting, as it does.
Yeah.
I think that's a better way to approach it.
You're enmeshing yourself when you start, when you engage like that, aren't you?
Mm-hmm.
Because I did work at taking myself out of the system energetically, and I still do to an extent. And there was a time I pay tax. When we have a company, we are on the radar kind of to a certain extent. But we got a small inheritance at one point, and three of my sisters, this was when I was really concentrating on not being energetically present, as far as the system was concerned.
Mm-hmm.
And my three sisters got demand letters for inheritance tax, and I didn't. And I was going, whoa, it's worked. Wait. But the thing was, and I rang them up just to see.
You were curious?
I didn't trust it. I just didn't trust it, you know. I just rang up, and of course, you know, that was it. I had to pay it
They're like, yeah, you wanna you wanna pay us? Sure, you have to now.
now. Yeah, it's a bit like, you know, not holding the focus to bring something into being. You know, as soon as you
Right,
question it, gone.
right,
You know,
yeah, that was probably a bad move, but you might also
it was.
have been living in fear if you have the same sort of, you know,
Mm.
if you hadn't done that, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, yeah,
So maybe it was
yeah.
better.
Yeah. I wasn't totally energetically there with it.
Yeah,
You know.
just the fact that you called them up to verify meant that you were worried about something.
I'm worried that you haven't got my details. Yeah. Next time, I'll be 100% in alignment with my decision.
Right.
Well, I think we can do that. I really do, Gary. I think that we can energetically extract ourselves, um, so that we, you know, we just do not show up.
Right.
I bet you've had that experience of like not showing up. Like somebody, you know, there are certain people who just don't see you.
Hmm.
Like, you know,
That's how I am on
just,
the. That's how I am here. There's a part that doesn't show up because I don't want it to, and therefore I escape. You know, I stay away from certain entities that I don't wish interacting with just because I don't want to.
yeah.
And I don't question it. I don't sit there and worry about it, or I just that's how it is, and you know, that's how it is.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But it is
Yeah.
really our internal thing that determines whether even big things, you know, government entities, whatever, they are still energetically affected by our internal belief system,
Yeah.
and it will affect it.
Mm.
Or not belief system, like this whole silence thing. When you're actually like abiding in that most of the time, then that stuff doesn't make noise either. It only makes noise if you start making some trigger inside, and then you start looking around and start getting scared. And then it starts, you know, moving around.
Yeah.
It's available to everybody.
Yeah. 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 And how's Jax doing with it all?
Um, I mean, he's with their family, and their family is you know at one with the system. So that's the path that he's going down in his life. But I just give him the opposite when he's with me. You know, so there's there's a bit of a you know struggle there because you know he has these certain ideas, and his ideas as he comes over here don't work anymore. So I'm sure inside he's like, well, what's going on? You know, how come this isn't working? But you know, he has to get both sides,
Mm.
in my opinion.
Yeah. The real, it's most important for them,
Hmm.
you know, and you give, you know, you have that.
Yeah.
Yeah. That foundation is just will never go.
But he has financial security over there, which I couldn't give at this point. So I'm happy for that he has that security. But um, still, like what happens when he's around me is different. It's more exploring and you know playful,
Yeah.
I'm sure, than it is over there. Not watching TV 24/7.
Yeah.
He's good.
Wow. Mm. So where are you? You're in California somewhere, are you?
Hmm. Fresno at the moment. I'll probably be back in San Francisco soon, trying to drive people around with my bum arm. That should be should be exciting.
Mm.
I'll make it work
Do
somehow.
you drive an automatic, do you?
Yeah, I
Yeah.
prefer I
'Cause
prefer
you can hear
manual.
it clicking in and out when
Mm.
you're driving around. Mm.
I prefer stick shift though. They're much more fun.
Yeah, I do drive a stick shift. I failed my first driving test in Florida, actually.
Oh yeah.
I
Why?
don't know. I didn't stop at a stop sign because there was nothing coming. Story of my life.
Just dematerialize the stop sign, you know. Instructor's like, wait, I didn't think this was an uncontrolled stop here.
Yeah, you could have fun with that. Changing the traffic lights as you approach them as well.
Uh-huh.
Oh, yeah, yeah. Hogwarts. Yeah, I won Hogwarts for adults, really. You know, Hermione's wand. Boom.
Yeah, I mean, we need that magical essence back somehow, some way. Because
Absolutely.
it really is it's the iron logic that's doing this. It's like ego mind iron log paired with just intellect, not the whole other spectrum of what makes up a human. Like there's so much more.
Yeah. And all of that is so constricted, so rigid, actually.
Hmm.
All of those words are rigid words. Um, they don't leave any room for expansion and for wavy lines.
Right. It's like all the houses are built as boxes. You know, it's the cube replicating everywhere. It's just box. It's like
Yeah.
no, you don't have to make a dome. There are so many different ways you can make a living arrangement.
Yes.
But we have
Absolutely.
boxes on boxes, and it's just ugly.
Oh, they make me sick. They make me physically ill when I'm driving around. Oh my God. I don't know how people live in those. I live in a box, but I don't live in a whole estate of boxes, you
Yeah.
know. When you come to these places, like there's 200 or 300 houses that are exactly the same. Oh
Yeah,
my
the
God.
right, the planned estate communities, they have the wall around them and all the houses look exactly the same. All the lawns are
And,
manicured exactly the same. It's so
oh, yoy,
gross.
yoy. And everybody checks everybody else's car to see what it's like.
Right. Cuz that's the
What
one
time you get
that's the one thing that's different, so they have to try and make that like stand out a little bit.
Yeah. And people, I did stay in an estate for a couple of months one time, and it was the most horrendous experience because we absolutely didn't know the next door neighbors, um, but we could hear them. This was the weird thing. It was like we could hear them having fights and arguments and etc. But so we knew far more about them than we'd ever want to know about somebody, really. And then you walk out the front door and you wouldn't look right or left. It was like these two people would walk out the front door to the gate, out the gate, as if, we didn't know anything about each other. Very weird.
Mhm.
And then there was this like, we didn't get up, like, we didn't get out of bed until we felt like getting out of bed. But, after about 2 months of living there, it was like, you're going, oh my God, everybody's out of bed really early in this place because you could see the windows open and people start, you know, and it was like, this is such an effective part of the control system as well, having
Mhm.
people live like this where everyone's looking at everyone else and going, oh my God, they're doing this and they're doing that.
Right.
Maybe I should do this too.
Yeah, it's the petri dish where all everyone keeps the neighbors in line, you know.
Yeah. They go out at the same time in the morning. Who ever thought 9 o'clock was a good time to go to school? I don't know. That's completely crazy.
Yeah, I mean it really is like we started with we're at the bottom. Like as far as creativity, individual expression being allowed, health, like take everything that you think would make a good community and just blast all of that to smithereens and then put everyone in jail without actually letting them know they're in jail. Like that's basically where we're starting from.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I still feel like it's that thing where the glass thing has been removed and we're able to do the other stuff. We just have to get over our preconceived or our remembered sort of fear responses whenever we tried to do something like that in the past, because I feel like we are in a different, energetically in a different realm now.
Yeah. and that's a big part of it, actually. I've been noticing in myself, Gary. You know, like I'd be. I'd feel a kind of a pressure coming in to do something, and then I go, hang on a second, that's, you know, that doesn't count anymore. That's not real anymore. It's not. It never was anyway. But it's not. That's just that, go away.
Right.
But it's like I feel I need to be more disciplined, because I do feel that things have really really expanded, and that I'm like this, you know, standing here with the cage door open, and I'm just not going out there.
Right, right. That's exactly it. But it's also like I don't want people to think they should get down on themselves for not jumping out the cage door, because what prohibited us from going out before was very real when it was there. So that memory, it's kind of like dealing with that, and then maybe experimenting, like go poke your nose outside and smell, you know, see if something else, see, you know, just like, you don't need to just fly out the door, because you are going to freak yourself out if you do that.
Yes.
So, you know, be gentle with yourself as you're allowing to expand a bit outside of these super constrictive ways that we've been living in up until now. But it's also with community, so it's also with us doing things like this, because everybody who's watching is getting the same energy, and then they can apply some of that into their lives if they want, and it kind of spreads like that.
Yeah. And it's I'm searching for the words. Hmm. I'm I'm just seeing this thing. It's like, yeah, it's that's weird. I completely lost the word.
I mean, words don't work that well most of the time, so it's probably all right.
But yeah, I agree. It's really wonderful to be able to share, because this will grow exponentially. I suppose that's what I mean.
Mm-hmm.
The more that we share our experiences and normalize things that are happening to us as well, so that people don't feel unusual. I mean,
Right.
that was one of the things, like for people like Ehor's generation, you know, to be as sensitive as he was, that wasn't normalized in his, you know, in his world.
Right.
And it's really important for people to have that, to see things as a gift, and you know, not a failure, if you like,
Right.
fragility. Yeah. I do feel exponential growth is it's here. It's possible. It's almost like fractaling out as much as we've been fractaling in recently.
Mm-hmm.
Like bringing all these fragments back in. Now we have the potential to really go.
Yeah.
Yeah. In much more colourful way. Yeah. But I'm going off planet. I mean, that's my.
You're going off planet?
Yeah. My next trip. I want to be an intergalactic anthropologist.
There you go.
And yeah, that's because I want to know how they live. You know, completely different. Ooh, you've gone dark again.
He opened the door. It's messing with the light thing.
I'll open this.
It's okay. It's fine.
She can't see anymore? Oh, that's because of the brightness in the back.
It's
I'll
fine.
switch it.
No, it's fine. It's fine.
You don't
It's
mind?
the light has been bad from the beginning anyway.
Oh.
It's completely fine.
Maybe this. Do you want this? Yeah, you probably need this.
I will be dark, Gary.
I'm behaving like my cat does. I'm trying to see round the corner to see who's talking. Obviously, that doesn't work.
It's Dad. He's gardening and being out and about.
So your dad and your mum must have been quite progressive in a way to get into homeschooling? Was that
Yeah, I mean,
was
they
that
felt like that was the right thing to do, so that's what they did. And I mean, it's good and it's bad, but like I said, if I was in the if I was in the machine from the get go, I would be much different.
mm,
I wouldn't be here making YouTube videos.
yeah.
So there is a certain amount of sort of trauma that I think is necessary to even see. Because imagine if everybody literally became the drone that, the Walking Dead, like you're talking about. What if everyone became that? Then nobody would be even left to say, like, to see anything or to say anything could be different.
Mm,
And if you
it's
were
hard.
one of the Walking Dead and that was all you saw, then you wouldn't know that that's what it was.
Whoa. Yeah. See, I grew up with science fiction. This place where I live was owned by an American science fiction writer who was kind of like a foster mum to a whole load of Irish teenagers, and she let us hang out in her house and eat all her food and play. We used to play kamikaze bridge and stuff like that. But she was brilliant because she was a real antidote to like the kind of the families that we all came from, which were completely closed down Catholic families.
Hmm.
And she had this, she designed her own planet. She was somewhere else all the time. And she allowed us, to expand in that way, for us, it's like, normal that there's dragons and unicorns and aliens from
Right.
other worlds. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I think just the ability to be open, to not set don't set the thing to where now you know what it is and nothing will ever change for you ever again. Like, why do you need to do that? Yes, you can do that. You don't need to do that.
Yeah. And that's death, actually. Totally. If you can't, one of the homeopathic definitions of health is the ability to adapt to change.
Hmm.
If you stop adapting to change, if you stop changing, essentially, you're gone, you're finished.
That's even in that old, uh, survival of the fittest nonsense, like evolution. Even though there's a lot of nonsense in there, still that idea of adaptation was important. It is important to be able to move and
Yeah.
adapt with change. Otherwise, you won't be, you'll die.
Yeah.
Whether it
No
be,
vitality.
yeah. And there's more than one way to die. Like physical death is the last. Like you die spiritually, you die emotionally, you die. There's so many ways to die.
Oh, yeah. I remember the first time I worked in an art center when I was just kind of young, like 20, for a while. And they wanted me to take a job. They gave me a contract to sign, and I had this terrible vision of the desk on a Monday morning going into infinity. I was like, no, I can't do that. And then when it came to mortgage, that word mortgage, I mean, from the little French I knew, that was the word for death.
Yep. Death
Age
gauge.
of death. I couldn't do that either. It's like, holy God. Because you could see that with your friends. I don't know if you see it with yours. From my background, not many of my friends went the mortgage route, I have to say. But you could see people it's like you can see this closing down. Oh my God, I've got the mortgage.
Mm-hmm.
And now I'm going to have to work till the mortgage is paid.
Yeah,
I'm going to have to stay in the job,
you
whether
see
I
it.
hate it or not.
You see the death sentence.
Oh, yeah. Ew. God. Lucky.
I have my own version of mortgages, but they're not extended out that far.
Mm. Yeah.
It's dirty though. There's a lot of dirty things out there.
Yeah, there are. Well, not for long. Not for long.
I think we're
I
coming.
know how to build.
Huh?
I'm laughing. I'm sort of boasting, saying I know how to build. I don't really. I've been on a weekend workshop to make a straw bale house,
Mm-hmm.
um, and that is really. And you know, in the Steiner system of education, if they do that system right, like there's not many countries where they do it right, but the first 7 years that is emphasis on getting the child into the body. The second 7 years the emphasis is on the emotional development, and only finally then do they put the emphasis on the intellect. And in the last year they want those kids to go out knowing that they can make their own shelter, so they build a house.
Mm.
There's a not all Steiner schools can do that, of course, but there's a school in France where they have the room, and this is their final achievement. Is, look, I can go out in this world and I can make my own shelter.
It's
Um,
called
and
Steiner.
Steiner, STE, the Steiner Wall. You call them the Waldorf schools, I think, in America.
Mm-hmm.
Steiner was an extraordinary character, wrote a lot. We were out of Renaissance man, I suppose. Okay. Had opinions on pretty much everything.
Yeah.
This is my medicine called anthroposophical medicine, which is quite close to homeopathy in America.
Yeah, I've heard of it. Steiner School. Do you know anybody that enrolled their children in a Waldorf or a Steiner school?
Oh, absolutely. My nephews, the two, Ben and Micah, they went to Steiner kindergarten. And it was just, oh my God, I would have gone back to kindergarten just to be there. It was just so beautiful.
Nice.
Absolutely. They develop their buildings don't have corners for starters. In a real Steiner kindergarten, they don't put corners in the rooms because the corners, as well, they don't like those cube shapes. And corners give off bad energy. If you're very sensitive to energy, a corner will give off energy that will make you feel uncomfortable.
Mm-hmm.
Everything is natural. They've got crayons and beeswax crayons and wood and sheepskin, and they've no plastic toys or anything like that. Everything is organic. Everything is something that you want to touch. They spend a lot of time, I don't know, a couple of weeks on the notion of one. Like, they don't roar through. They spend a lot of time just they'd lie on the ground, all the kids together, to make a one, or they'd bring stuff until they really, oh, this is what one is. Okay, let's move on to two. Let's move on to three. And
Mm-hmm.
they do grounding. Oh, fabulous, really, really interesting. And then the schools struggle here because they don't get government funding, because
Right.
they don't teach the way the government wants.
Right.
So the boys had to leave and go to normal school. And Michael got very sick, and he was always very sick in school. And then they went to another Steiner school, another one opened up. And for instance, when they were doing geology, they really get into a bit like the homeschooling thing. It's like, if you get really into something, you don't finish it off in 40 minutes. You can spend days investigating. You can go out and you can chip on rocks. You can go and visit places. You can, at the very, very end of their geology section, they made it. I went into the school and we made an essence together with rock. So they could see, and they learned about crystal healing, and they learned about all sorts of things. So when it's well done, it's a very complete system.
Mm-hmm.
And the interesting thing was that the boys didn't want the school term to end. Like they were pleading with the teacher, they were bargaining with the teacher not to stop. And that's a completely different experience to what most kids can't wait to get out of school.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, those places are good. I know that the fact that people have to pay a lot of money to go there.
Yeah.
because of the non-funding thing. It makes it so it's only available, to certain economic situations,
Yes.
which also means it's not available to other people. But it's part of the push, though. I think a good part.
Yeah.
It's going to come about how it comes about. We can't really dictate that exactly.
Well, interesting. From what I'm seeing is that it's like an own goal from the fucking government. Actually, certainly in California, they're looking at the mandatory vaccination as a requirement for school entry. It's not quite in place as far as I know, or certainly not all over. But that is pushing some parents to say, okay, well, I'm not going to put my kid in school in that case.
Mm-hmm.
So now there are groups of homeschoolers coming together. There's a World Homeschooling Organization. So they're groups, and it's better than, they're organizing themselves so that the kids, one of the problems with homeschooling is social isolation.
Mm-hmm.
You're just hanging out with your brothers and sisters, and if you don't get on, it's too bad. In now that homeschooling is growing, there are groups of parents coming together who homeschool, and so their kids have a much better, social group to hang out with. They're not so stigmatized for being, different, for not going to school.
Yeah, right.
So, yeah, it's happening. It is happening.
Yeah. Slowly but surely, right?
Yeah.
The turtle wins the race.
Oh, yeah. Oh, God, yes. And it's been a long race. A very, very long race.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Yeah.
Well, I think we're coming to the end here. I gotta eat and take care of some things.
And the cat is sitting on the windowsill. He's waiting patiently to get in.
Oh, he's outside?
Yeah.
Oh, wow. That's a patient. He's been waiting for 2 hours? Or how?
Well, he
hour and a half?
jumped up, about half an hour into it.
Okay. That's still pretty patient.
Which is not his normal character. He's called the Little Bollocks.
Little shit?
Ehor prefers that he's called, what is he called now? Little Valiant.
Valiant?
Which means brave.
Ah.
The little brave one. He is brave.
There you go. How old is he?
Ancient. I'd say he was a rescue. He arrived in this place, and he knows I'm talking about him because he's trying to get in the window now. He arrived, and he lived in the yard. This is a farm, so he lived out for years, and then about 2 years ago he moved into this house here without a by your leave. It was like, it's getting a little bit rough out there, and I want a bed. So I think he must be about 20.
Okay. That's actually pretty old. I think our oldest cat lived to like 18.
Yeah.
Wow.
Maybe I'm wrong. That is, 20 is very old, isn't it?
Well, thank you, Anne, for coming on.
A pleasure.
Do you have any closing things?
No. Not a word. No, it's been fun and lovely, and I look forward to listening to the other Irish girl, actually.
Yeah. You're welcome back whenever time is right.
Yeah.
So we will.
And thanks, Gary. I really appreciate what you do. It's it's very unusual.
Yeah, I'm doing my thing.
You are.
Thank you, Anne.
Thank you.
Take care.
Okay, bye.
Bye.